Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Solutions Lab. I'm Chris Phillips. Thank you so much for joining us today for this training. Happy to see everyone that has shown up today. Today, we've got a great training. We've got some familiar faces to the Solutions Lab that are happy to see back here. But real quick, before we get started, I do want to let you guys know that this is less of a presentation, more of a conversation. We have a Q&A window off to the right there. If you have any questions throughout this entire presentation, don't hesitate to ask. We'll be answering questions throughout the presentation as well as after the presentation. So please feel free to butt in with any questions you might have. We also do have resources available to you throughout the presentation that you guys can view. I believe those are in the bottom. Go ahead, give those a click, check them out. Those will also be available after this webcast has been concluded. But to get things underway, as we talk about Chrome for Enterprise, I've got two people with me today. First of all, from D&H, we have Trevor Schubert. Trevor, good to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you, man. It's been a whole pandemic since we've done one of these things, so I'm all about it.
It's been a literal pandemic.
Yes.
And now that is a unit of time etched into our being that we can all understand. And from Google, we have Fausto. He's the partner sales engineer for Google. Fausto, great to meet you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, and hopefully everyone's going to be learning a lot about Chrome Enterprise, and hopefully everybody's going to be selling happily afterwards.
Yes, that is the goal.
I like that.
So without further ado, I'll send it over to you guys. Kick things off and get things underway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Awesome.
I know you have a deck ready to roll, so let's, I guess, kick into that. And like Chris had said before earlier, everyone that's on the call, thanks again, everyone, for attending. Very informal. At any point, if you see something that makes sense, just stop, raise hand, drop a question. I think there's a digital hand raise, maybe. I don't know whatever it might be, but drop a question in, and we'll address it hopefully right then and there. If not, we'll definitely have time at the end to go over a bit. And I have a bit of a demo kind of planned for you, so we're going to have a little fun at the very end of the webcast here. So let's roll.
I can see my reflection in the demo.
Oh, look at that! Perfect. There, I'll fix that for you.
Like, all right,
just went to sleep for a second.
All right, so thanks everyone. I'll go ahead and get this started. I know we have about an hour to go, and we do have a lot of information, so let's get right to it. Again, super excited to be discussing this. I know that our partners at D&H are really all in on Chrome Enterprise, and our hope is that by the end of this presentation that you're going to learn a lot about it, and perhaps if you're not already signed up to be a Chrome reseller, that you'll be able to do that by the end of this presentation. So before we even get into Chrome, let's start talking about what we're trying to solve for, right? And we have a lot of our customers dealing with something on a daily basis that I myself dealt with. I was a system engineer for more than 2 decades before coming over to Google, and I dealt with the legacy endpoints that a lot of your customers deal with on a daily basis, right? And it's kind of a cycle, just like you see here, that it keeps going on, and it never ends, really. And it all starts with updating your operating system. It never ends, right? And one of the bad things about that is that you spend a lot of time determining which patches, which updates are good, which ones are not going to break your environment. Of course, you have to update your antivirus. And one of the things I hate about updating antivirus definitions is that the moment you update them and you walk away, they are out of date, because antivirus is only as good, right, as that date. New viruses are coming out literally every day, attacking businesses and users worldwide. Of course, another thing that you constantly have to do is update software, right? All these applications that are out there within your environment, as an IT admin, you have to figure out a way to update all of those systems remotely, right? In some cases, we used to have that within the office, and even then it was difficult. So imagine doing that now when you have thousands of users literally all over the world. And one of the things that I also did, as part of my previous life, I was in charge of backups, and I would spend hours and hours every day and night making sure that the data within the company that I worked for were always up to date. Why? Because at any point, disaster could strike. So this is kind of the system that we work with now, right? So how can Chrome help? And, some people may think that we are coming at this as the new kid on the block, but we have been doing this for more than 10 years now. We recently celebrated the 10th anniversary of Chrome Enterprise. And every year, one of our goals is to come out with features that take Chrome to the next level, especially on Enterprise. We're always striving for features that will integrate Chrome into the customer's existing infrastructure, and obviously features that take things to the next level beyond any other operating system within the market. So as you can see, there has been a lot of growth over the years. Now, you may think, well, how can a business use Chrome Enterprise? Do they just purchase a Chromebook? Well, we do have a license, and that license opens up a lot of the things that you see here. And we're going to be discussing these areas one by one. The most important thing that you should know as a reseller is that there is Chrome, the browser, right? There is Chrome OS, which is the operating system that comes on a Chromebook. Now, to use it on an enterprise and manage these devices at scale, you need the Chrome Enterprise Upgrade, which is a license that you'll be able to sell to customers. And there's 2 SKUs for that that we're going to be discussing today. There is an annual, right? And then there is a perpetual that lasts for the life of the device. And with those licenses, you'll be able to address some of these things that you see here. So now that that's been said, let's go ahead and go through some of the reasons why Chrome is the fastest growing operating system. And I don't just say that. Just recently, we surpassed Mac OS as the number 2 now operating system all over the world. So pretty impressive growth. Now, the number one thing that most customers are going to tell you that they love about Chrome is how easy it is to deploy. Right? And this is even before we had our zero-touch enrollment, which we'll be discussing a little bit later on. But it's so amazing that you can actually set up all your policies, and then after you enroll these devices, they automatically are ready to be drop shipped to users. Okay? And now with zero-touch enrollment, the process is even easier for your customers. Another thing that I love is that there's no imaging required. I mean, dealing with images is painful for our customers, right? Customers in general don't want to have to update something every 3 to 6 months. And that's kind of what you have to do with some of our competitors' products. With Chrome OS, all of the features, right? All of the settings, all of the policies, the data, the bookmarks, everything is actually kept in the cloud. So when a user logs into a Chromebook, it automatically turns that Chromebook into their own. And it happens within just a few minutes, which means that it makes the provisioning and reassigning a device super easy, right? And that is super important because it reduces the amount of time that the IT department has to spend repurposing devices. So then how does this all happen? We have the most simple management solution of any operating system. Why? Because everything is under a single pane of glass, and that is what we call the Google Admin Console, which you get with the Chrome Enterprise Upgrade, like I mentioned before. And with that, you get more than 500 policies that you can change. And the best thing about it is that these policies, when you set them up, you could literally be in Hawaii, right? And if you are in Hawaii on a beach over there and they have an internet connection, you make a change there. And a person all the way in France is going to be able to get that change almost instantly. And that change could be a security setting change. It could be deploying an application. It could be a certificate for access to resources, anything, and it happens instantly. The other cool thing through the admin console you can set up is different ways to access the systems. Sure, the users can log in if you want them to. You could actually have them log in with single sign-on as well. But one of the things that we love the most that has been a huge hit for us has been a managed guest session where you set up the applications, the restrictions and everything, and that's all that the users can do in there, and they don't actually have to log in. All the authentication happens at the application level, right? So let's say, for example, they have a Citrix application. The authentication happens when they actually launch Citrix. Another thing that's super important is that you can configure all of your network settings, including Wi-Fi and VPN. You could also configure printers. So all of these stuff can be pre-configured so that by the time your users, right, they get the device, all of it is done. And of course, perhaps one of the most important things is applications, right? So all your applications, extensions for your browser, bookmarks, everything could be managed remotely. And whenever you do something like that, you know, you're taking a lot of the hassle out of your daily life as an IT admin. So your customers are going to love you for it. And speaking of app, let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So we have applications that have been customized to work with Chrome. And we have a program that we'll be discussing a little bit later called Chrome Enterprise Recommended. So we work very closely with some of our partners in the technology field, you know, just to make sure that the application worked not only as expected, but even better than in some other operating systems. Another thing that some people may not realize is that you can actually get a lot done on a Chromebook offline as well as online. So obviously, this works really well with Google Workspace, but we also work really well with Microsoft Office 365. So if you have customers that use Office 365, this is not a showstopper, obviously. Another thing that some people may not know is that you are now able to run Windows applications within Chrome OS very easily. Obviously, if the customer has VDI through Citrix, Horizon, or Microsoft Desktop, you can actually access them through Chrome OS real easily, and you could run that within Chrome OS locally with a tool, an application called Parallels Desktop, which I don't know if you've probably encountered because it has been on the Mac operating system for a while, and now it has come to Chrome. And the great thing about it is that users can use it regardless of whether they are online or offline. And the last thing, obviously, is that this operating system works extremely well with pretty much every video conferencing solution out there. And that includes some of our biggest competitors, right? So that includes Microsoft Teams, for example, Zoom. We work very closely with all these folks to make sure that their applications work as expected. So now let's talk about my favorite topic. And this is, again, something that I did in my past, and I dealt with security issues as a legacy IT admin. And I really, really wish that this was available during my early days, because he would have, I probably wouldn't have as many gray hairs as I do now. Okay, so let's talk security. So one of the things that we love about security is that Chrome OS has been again and again described as the most secure operating system. Why? Vulnerabilities are practically, non-existent. And whenever there is something out there, it's addressed immediately, right? Now, the slide that you see here, it's for a specific feature called Verified Boot. And the way that this works, it's really amazing, right? The operating system, when you're booting up, it goes through and it will make sure that it does a check on the firmware of the device, right? It will then, if everything is okay, right, it goes on and it will check to make sure that the kernel of the OS is okay. Once it does that, then it would then check the operating system, the browser, the applications. And what it does is that it checks the signatures. If there was any type of malware, virus, spyware, anything like that, that tried to modify those signatures, the operating system will automatically reboot and give the customer a copy that was in the backup, running quietly in the backup, and it will get them back running within less than 5 to 6 minutes. It will literally delete the one that was modified, and they'll be up and running in no time. This kind of technology enables us to do a lot of really cool things. Like, for example, the entire operating system can be read-only, right? Because the operating system is read-only, we know for sure that nothing is supposed to modify any of these things here.
Fausto, Jason had a question. Jason had a question that popped up here. He was asking, does the security that's built into Chromebooks also protect against the viruses that have been hitting Exchange print servers? I would imagine that the answer is yes, because of the architecture of the Chromebook, right?
Yeah, that is correct. So the entire operating system is read-only, meaning as a user, right, when you log in, you basically save data to a user partition. The operating system itself cannot be modified. So even if you went to a site that was malicious or that had a vulnerability like the one that you just described, when you go there, that malware is not able to actually modify the operating system. And you'll see why in a minute, okay? So every Chromebook, regardless of the price point, comes with something we call the Titan C security chip. This is a TPM chip. Now, one of the reasons we bring this up is because you've probably saw in the news how one of our competitors has a new operating system coming up soon, right? And it was funny because I was looking at this the whole time, and pretty much every major feature that they're talking about, it's something that we've been doing for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest ones is that they actually will require a TPM chip. Yep. Well, guess what? Every Chromebook, regardless of the price point, has a TPM chip for the last 10 years. Yep, we just call it the Titan C security chip, right?
That vendor in particular then put out a tool saying, hey, you can check to see if your system is available, will work with this operating system. And many people that have a decent system found out that they couldn't run said new operating system because they didn't have a TPM chip that was also on the system, or they didn't have it enabled. But Chrome's been, like you said, that's not been an issue for Chrome for its existence.
Exactly.
To echo that on the system builder side of the house, I remember TPM modules being an add-on that you could physically plug into like high-end servers, or potentially something that was included on maybe like a high-end workstation, and not something you're always taking into consideration at the system builder level. But now they are. And if we're going to go to the new versions of things, I mean, I think it's smart. I think it's a great approach, and clearly it's been a perfect approach for Google, because that's been the standard for, like you said, the past decade. And we've been on the scene with Google at the hardware level. I think in that previous slide you shared regarding like the timelines, I think it was right around 2014 when it said something about major OEMs start to adapt. Well, D&H obviously being a distributor of all those OEMs, that's when we started to really see the value of these things and push these into the market and start to really excel with them. And I remember that being a feature from day one. So very cool.
Very, very cool indeed. So obviously the Titan C chip is going to continuously protect the user after they log in, and it's consistently checking, system integrity. It's part of that verified boot that we just discussed. But one of the other cool things is that all the data within the system is automatically encrypted, right? And the cool thing about that is that the keys are actually held within the device, so the IT admins don't have to go through the pain of handling different encryption keys left and right? The encryption cannot be disabled, which is another super important thing. That's not the case with our competitors. So all of this happens at the user level, which is really interesting because regardless of who you are, right, your profile is going to be encrypted with your own key. So if you share this device with another person, the other person will have a completely different encryption key. So they will not be able to access your stuff and you will not be able to access theirs. It's completely blocked. But most importantly, if for some reason this falls into the hands of a malicious person, they will need to get a supercomputer in order to crack this, because this is 256 EAS encryption. Okay, it is as good as it gets right now for one of these devices. Like I said before, the operating system is read-only, which also means that all executables are blocked. And obviously, most viruses and malware are going to come in executables. So right off the bat there, you are protected. None of that stuff is going to run. Another cool thing, and this feature I really love, because it's called Google Safe Browsing, and it really means Google in general. It's not just for Chrome OS. If you use the Chrome browser, even on Windows or a Mac or Linux, we have Google Safe Browsing protecting you from malicious websites. Obviously, as a search company, we're constantly browsing the web, right, to map it. And when we encounter a website that is malicious, that has been distributing malware, or that is a phishing website, we tag it. And then as an IT admin, you have the ability to completely block your users from going to those websites. So you get an extra layer of protection right off the bat. Another really cool thing is that we have sandboxing, right, and site isolation, which means that if there is a security threat on a particular website trying to steal information, everything is protected and isolated from the rest of the operating system and even the other tabs that are open within Chrome. So Google was the pioneer when it comes to sandboxing, and we continue to take that to the next level. Another really awesome thing is that by default on the browser, HTTPS is on. Okay. Now, HTTPS means that the data that you are accessing on a site, right, it is sent securely back and forth between you and the server that you're working on. May not seem like a lot, but if there is a man-in-the-middle attack, somehow trying to intercept your data from a third-party server or something like that, the data is protected. It's protected. One of my favorite things is the two-factor authentication, right? Two-factor authentication means that when you log in to a new device, you will be prompted to touch a key. In our case, it's an actual physical USB key that you plug into your system. And the reason that that's really good is because almost 80% of attacks, right, happen because of phishing, meaning somebody will send you a link that looks legitimate. You will click on it. They take you to a website that looks legitimate. You enter your username and password thinking, well, this is the website for my, from my job. And in reality, you're entering your username and password on a third-party website. When you have two-factor authentication, yes, they may get your information, right, to log in, but they can't do anything with it because they would need that physical USB key in order to actually log into one of your systems. So it wouldn't affect you really. It's kind of a moot point. We implemented that about 3 or 4 years ago here at Google, and we haven't had a single break-in ever since we activated two-factor authentication. You can also do two-factor with text messages, kind of the way that you are used to it with your phone and with some financial institutions. So you could do that as well. And that's all included, by the way, with the Chrome Enterprise upgrade that we mentioned before. So no extra cost there. The other part that is super interesting here is the single sign-on, right? So we work very nicely with any system that is SAML-based out there. So, and by the way, that will also include Active Directory. So if you have customers that want to have their users log into their systems with their existing Windows accounts, they will be able to do it. It just has to be set up. And once you set it up, the users don't have to learn a new set of username and passwords, which is pretty important to a lot of customers. Okay. Now, speaking of passwords, We mentioned before that almost 80% of all attacks start with phishing, right? So what happens if one of your customers actually, they have users that go out there and enter their username and password at the wrong website? We have something called the password alert policy that will automatically force the user to change their password, right? And you would get notified as a manager that there was a breach. And the reason this is good is because if you're an IT admin, you know the websites that use the corporate username and password. So we provide a policy that tells you which are your websites. You have a list there. And then if your users enter that corporate password anywhere else, then you get notified, which is amazing because it really reduces the potential for breaches, right? And it takes things kind of to the next level, basically, in terms of security. It's preventive security, not reactionary. So this is kind of what
also
we
real
call
quick, the notification for the security breaches, does it happen in a post effect as well? So example of maybe a large, we'll say, trying to be non-specific enough here. We'll say one of the big credit bureaus had maybe a little bit of a breach or something, and maybe their username password information got pulled. Will you get a notification on that previous list you mentioned that a site that you had previously put your information to has been breached and that you should change?
We do have that built in, but that's part of the Chrome browser. It's a feature that if you have saved a username and password within Chrome browser, and then a website that has that username and password was breached, you will be notified. But that's not this specific feature that we just discussed. This specific feature is only for corporate username and passwords. The one that I'm talking about, it's something that can be used for any website. As long as you save the username and passwords within Chrome, it will do a check. And if there is a website out there that was breached, it will tell you, hey, it looks like that username and password was leaked in the underworld. You may want to change it because there was a breach.
Right.
So that feature is free as part of Chrome. So when you take all of these things together, right, this is what we call the multi-layer security approach. And the awesome thing about that is that if you have a piece of malware that is trying to do something, there's definitely going to be stopped. But if for some reason, right, it's a super virus or something, there is another feature right behind it to protect it. So that layer protection, it's super effective. How effective? Well, we have had 0 ransomware attacks on Chrome OS. Not just this year, ever. Right? Not a single Chromebook has been a victim of ransomware. We're very proud of that. All these layer protection is fantastic. And one of the great things about it is that, and some customers will say, hey, I was trying to install antivirus on the Chromebook, right, but I can't. That's because you don't need it. All of these features working together make the point of antivirus completely unnecessary. And the same features that protect you, like the fact that it's a read-only operating system, completely eliminates the need for antivirus because the OS would not be modified. Now let's think real quickly about money, right? What does it mean for your customers when they start using Chrome OS? I often talk about a total cost of ownership because at the end of the day, whenever you're talking about legacy systems, you have to include everything, right? All the upgrades, the time that you spend on the help desk just to get the systems out there, imaging, antivirus, all those things. If you think of all those things as a line on a budget, with Chrome OS, you'll be crossing them off. And you are able to save up to $482 per device per year by just moving to Chrome OS. And this is not savings, right, because of the cost of the hardware, which in general are usually more affordable. But still, this is just on the reduced deployment, the upgrades, the training costs. The total cost of ownership is much lower. So you also will get enterprise support with the Chrome Enterprise upgrade. And that means 24/7, 365 days a year, which is fantastic. The other really cool thing is that if you have customers, and I hope that you do, that are conscious about the environment, these devices will consume 46% less energy. They have a very low carbon footprint. Okay, so it's gonna cost less also to run those devices within your office, which is fantastic. Okay. Now we do have a lot of customers. Obviously, some most of the bigger ones we didn't even list here, but every vertical that you could think of, we're there. Okay, so if you have customers that are in the financial services area, we'll definitely be able to help you there. If you have customers in healthcare, we're huge in healthcare too. Tech, you name it, we're gonna be there. So I'm going to take a pause here. We're kind of halfway through, so I want to take a pause to go through, some, if you have any questions here, perhaps Chris could go through the Q&A and let me know what's in there for now.
Yeah, the one question that did come up that I wanted to ask. Someone asked, is there any difference between the Chrome Management Console for education and for enterprise in terms of the feature set?
That's a fantastic question. In most cases, I would say pretty much 99% of the time, not really. The one difference that I can think of is that we have integration on the enterprise with a few things that are not part of EDU. So we're talking about integration with third-party management systems. So let's say that you're a business or that you have VMware Workspace ONE, which is a tool that you can use to manage Windows devices, Android, iOS, and you also want to manage your Chromebooks with it. The enterprise license will give you the ability to do that, but the EDU license does not. So third-party MDMs are not supported with the EDU license, as well as full integration. The ability to manage the devices with Active Directory is also enterprise only, not available on EDU. Other than that, everything is the same.
Cool. There's another question that just came through, and it's still kind of a common question we get just because of the initial impression that people got with the first couple generations of Chromebooks. Is I have never used a Chromebook because that wasn't connected to the internet, so I'm concerned about it not being able to do certain things offline. Is there anything you can do to address this? And I would say anything you do to address this based on of what hardware and software changes we've now seen to the Chrome operating system?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have several types of applications. We have Chrome web apps, and most of those will have a component where they are able to save an offline presence, so that so if you're offline, you can do that. Same thing with PWAs. If it's a really well-constructed PWA, you will be able to use it offline because a space gets carved out within the local hard drive to be able to do that. We also have Android apps that work offline. Same thing, like let's say that you have your Android phone and you're offline. There are certain things that you won't be able to do, like refresh, because it needs to go online to download data. But the data that it's in there, you'll still be able to use it when you're using Android. With Parallels, which we're going to be discussing now, if you have that lives within the device itself. So you'll be able to use your Parallels Windows image locally, even if you're offline. So yes, you can do a lot offline. That's kind of, it's something that has been out there in people's minds, but that's kind of not the case anymore.
We do have a couple of questions with Parallels in mind, but we'll hold those to that part. One more question before we continue. There was a concern, or someone had this question: when a Chromebook goes end of support, is it unable to be managed by the management console, and is it more likely to be open to attacks such as virus or ransomware?
That's a fantastic question. Also, we do have what we call a auto update date where after that date, the AUE, after that expiration date, the updates will stop coming to that device. That doesn't mean that it will automatically drop off from the admin console. You'll still be able to manage it. What happens though is that if there are new features coming out, that device is not going to get it. It's also not going to get all of the other security, all that stuff. All those updates are not going to be coming to it. So as an organization, you want to weigh in the risk. Do you want to keep a device that is 6-7 years old unsecure within your network, or get a new one? So you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of keeping that device within your environment. Good news in that area is that we are working to separate some components within the OS. I'm sure you've seen the news and on the blogs already, where eventually we will be able to provide some very critical updates, separate from the OS in case there is something that is absolutely critical to be updated. So we're working on that. If you see that out there, I'm sure you have. That's kind of working towards that. However, I just can't say that I recommend running these devices past the date. Now, just for context, any new device, right, gets about 8 years worth of support, which is pretty
a lot.
I mean, if you have a computer that runs for 8 years and and it's still really good and kicking, like I think
I challenge anyone that is listening to this webcast right now. If you are using a 8-year-old plus computer as your daily driver, and you could prove that to me, you will win absolutely nothing but my respect.
Show me the Vista. Show me the Vista. Let's go.
Show me the Vista. One more question. I lied. One more question before we continue. You guys are asking some great questions. Keep them coming. We're going to be answering them throughout this presentation. One more. Rodney wanted to know, so Microsoft 365 will still need an internet connection to work. I'll kind of answer that question because I've used Office 365 on a Chromebook. No, you don't need an internet connection to work. Essentially, you're launching either the Android version of the app or the web version of the app. Either one can run in offline mode. Any changes you're making to a document or any new documents you make are saved locally. And then as soon as you touch the internet connection again, it's updated to the cloud. So that's how it's worked for like the last about 6 years. Still how it works today.
Yeah, and if anyone's curious about the update policy itself, it's really easy to, Google it, I think. It's just, I think, what is it? Something like auto update policy for Chromebook, or if you put in some combination of words that has at least a couple of those key buzzwords in it, you will find the first hit being a master list that breaks it down by manufacturer, by model, and you'll see so many of these things. I feel like a kid in the late or mid 90s or so when I'm looking at batteries and going like, oh, this doesn't expire until 2020 or 2005 or 2000. Like that's forever. That's a whole that's, I'm not even going to worry about it. That's what you start to see with some of these Chromebooks, is that the actual expiration dates for the updates, and again we've clarified that they're still going to function afterwards, but the actual dates to stop updating, some of these are already going into 2028, 2029. It's crazy.
Yep. All right. So now that we've answered those questions, I wanted to then touch on a few new solutions that we released this past year. And basically, the goal of those has been to accelerate the move to Chrome OS for our customers. Okay. The first one is a tool that allows customers to find out how ready their environment is to move to Chrome OS. And we call it the Chrome OS Readiness tool, appropriate name there. The way it works is that it will log in. It's a tool that you deploy within all of your environment. Let's say you have Windows machines. You install it on all the machines. It will log the apps that are being used, the websites that the customers are going to, and it will compare that with an application database that is also local. Now, It does that comparison, and then it'll be able to tell the customer who's ready. And in some cases, if the customer is not ready, then they'll be able to continue to Chrome OS either with a VDI solution or with Parallels, which we'll also discuss in a few minutes. One of the cool things about it is that the tool is free, right? So you can just go to our website, you can download it, you'll be able to deploy it and customize it for your environment. And it's 100% secure because all of the data stays within your environment. Nothing comes to Google. It stays, you specify this is where I want my data to be stored, and then you look at the report and analyze it, which is awesome because then you'll have a very secure, data-driven tool that allows you to, analyze your system, show it to the powers that be, and tell them, hey, look, we are ready to make that move. Let's jump. The second thing is, and this is something that I mentioned in the beginning, we have a program called Chrome Enterprise Recommended, where we work with our partners to make sure that their applications are absolutely ready to be used on Chrome OS. And the great thing about it is that it speeds up the deployment time because you don't have to test those applications. We did that for you already. Also, it makes the change management process a lot easier whenever you're doing this. We started with certain areas like productivity and printing, and we work with all the partners that you see here to make sure that their apps were ready. We have moved on to identity. And by the way, we have a lot more partners that we have added since this slide was created about a quarter ago. Okay, you can come to this website and it will give you the full list of all the partners that we're working with now. So if you have a customer that absolutely needs a specific solution to work on Chrome OS, if you come here to any of these areas, you'll be able to see which ones are ready. And now for Parallels. I know that there are some questions about Parallels. So once again, for those of you that have never heard of the name, it's basically a system that allows you to run, an application that allows you to run Windows within Chrome OS. It's kind of a virtual environment within the Chromebook. It doesn't have to be run on a server, okay? I think somebody said that we're stuck on the Readiness tool. Did it move now? Or?
I'm just gonna go ahead and repush just to make sure, but let me know, guys, if you're still stuck on the Readiness tool. If not, we are on this parallel slide. So,
is it there now?
I believe we're good, but
Okay.
Mike, I will just ask you to refresh your stream there.
It's looking good here.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, we're supposed to be on slide 32.
Yep.
So how does it work? So an IT admin could deploy Windows images, and it could be separate images for separate groups of users. It has all the tools built right in. One of the things that I really love about this is that it's a shared profile between Windows and Chrome OS. So you can actually save files within Windows. And then when you go back to Chrome OS, there's a folder, and the files are there. You can access them very easily. So you can go back and forth between the two without too many problems, and it makes the experience very smooth, very transparent. Okay. The fact that the operating system is running locally has a lot of benefits. So obviously, the fact that you can run the Windows applications that are crucial to your business, that's the number one thing. But one of the cool things about it is that whenever you turn off the OS, like Chrome OS, or you close the lid, and then you open it again, you'll pick up exactly where you left off. Like, to the point that the cursor could be in a specific location, and the next time you open up that Windows instance, you're going to be exactly where you left it off, because everything gets paused, and when you come back, you'll pick up right there. Like I mentioned before, everything that you run could be run offline. Everything runs from your hard drive. So you could literally, jump on your train, get to work, and all the work that you did on the train, as soon as you get back to the office, will be uploaded. Okay. So for customers that want a free trial, they can go to this website and they'll be able to download the free trial there. Okay. And now,
Do we want to answer a couple? Do we want to answer a couple of parallel questions real quick
Sure.
before we get off this topic? First one is, can you run parallels side by side, or is only one? How does the boot mode work? So I guess he's asking, when you open Parallels and you run Windows, do you close Chrome OS and go into Windows OS, or are they both OSs running side by side?
They're running side by side. It's not a boot. It's not a boot thing. It's an icon on your desk. You click on it, it launches Windows, and then you could do full screen, right? But it runs, pardon the word, but parallels to each other.
Parallel. Marketing.
It all makes sense now. Look at that.
What are the hardware requirements for Parallels to run on a Chromebook?
That's a good
Great question too. So it has to be a processor on the Intel side. It has to be at least a Core i5, right? Ryzen 5 on the AMD side. As far as RAM, they say that it will run with 8 gigs, and I believe them. I've run it on a 16 gig RAM device, and it runs perfectly. So I have not tried it with the 8 gigs, but they just updated the requirements to say that they've made a lot of improvements. So 8 gigs is all that you will need. As far as the storage, that really depends on you. I mean, if you're going to be running Windows, you may not want to install it if your Chromebook only has like 64 gigs of space, because Windows is a big animal and it will take up a lot of space eventually. So I would say just 128 gigs of storage, preferably SSD, because then the Windows will boot up even faster. Windows loves that kind of stuff.
Well, I think the requirement for the iProcessor really helps dictate the type of quality hardware and the type of specs that are already going to be under the hood. I think you'd be really hard pressed to find an i5 solution that has less than 64 gigs. As far as the storage is concerned, you will find some 8 gig ones for sure. But I think in terms of just our D&H customers, great places and resources to go would be pre-sales support, the Solutions Lab, right, or pro services at dnh.com. Any of those aliases have staff, especially on the pre-sales side, that could look through, kind of our current availability and make some recommendations based on those hardware specs for sure.
Yeah. Yes, Josh, you're not going to be running Parallels on the education Chromebooks that you bought for school 3 years ago. That's just not the spec that this is going to work on. One last question. Right. Someone was asking about peripherals and USB, like if I plug in a USB flash drive into a Chromebook that's running Parallels, will the Windows version see the flash drive, or will the Chrome OS see the flash drive? I'm guessing same with webcams and all that stuff.
We have USB pass-through, yes.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, so you'll be good.
All right, and I just want to be like upfront as someone who's used Parallels in the past, and if someone you've not used for Parallels, you're really not using Parallels to turn your Chromebook into a Windows daily driver. You're using Parallels to run Windows in the instances where you need to run a Windows application that doesn't have a Chrome one-to-one comparison to. You're not booting up your Chromebook, then booting up Parallels, then booting up Windows, and then just using your Chromebook as a Windows laptop. That's not necessarily the workflow you want there. It's just for the instances. Yes, it's just for the instances where you need a Windows operating system.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep on moving.
So, let's move on to zero-touch enrollment. You've probably heard this term before, and full disclosure, somebody will need to touch it eventually, but that's usually not the customer. That would be the folks over here. So how does that work? Because it's really interesting. It's been a huge hit for us. Basically, the way that people will provision the devices, somebody would need to go in, log in with a username and password. If you're doing a lot of them at the same time, it could cause issues, and CAPTCHA could come up and prevent you from going forward. So that kind of stuff, was kind of slowing the deployment. So we decided, let's go zero touch enrollment. Especially during the pandemic, it has been, fantastic. So how does it work? So the first thing is that there are all the OEMs decided, you know what, we're going to be all in. Once a OEM decides that they want to do that, they will have something called an attested device ID, which is a unique ID. And for most of them, it's going to be the serial number, except for Lenovo, they have a different method. But so these devices that have the unique ID would then be paired up with 3 key pieces of information that the customer will provide to you, the reseller, right? So one is a pre-provisioning token that they will generate from their admin console. And then the other one would just be their domain name, where they do business, right? So you take the attested ID, the provisioning token, and the domain, right? And you will pass it on to our friends at D&H. They will get that, right? And then they will basically do the magic on the back end. They will send that through a private API over to Google. We'll get that and pre-provision the devices on the back end. So then what ends up happening is the devices could be drop shipped directly to the end users. All they will need to do will be to connect those devices to a network. And then this is what they'll see, right? The device will automatically say, welcome, let's connect. They accept the terms of services. And then in the background, it's doing all the fun stuff. It will do the enrollment. It will check for the licenses, right? It just tells them wait. And then boom, you're already enrolled, and it will show them a login screen. And
so also, this is a perfect place to highlight my little demo I got behind me. So we're actually at that step with this device I have here. This is an Acer unit approved for Zero Touch or ZTE. And I'm at the stage where it literally just needs an internet connection. And then what we're going to see as we continue on through our fantastic webcast here is the screen's going to flash a little bit, and we're going to have a D&H background in the background, which is, well, the background in the background, right? Which is going to tell us that this thing's been deployed correctly. But I'm going to go ahead and just get into its connection now while you continue on. And in a minute or two, we'll see this thing happen real time. So go for it.
So yeah, the idea of zero touch enrollment is that, a customer that has a distributed workforce will be able to give devices to their end users, right? From anywhere in the world, where there is a reseller that's working with D&H. And the users just needs to log in, essentially. Connect to the Wi-Fi network, just the same way they would do with any computer. And then that's it. And that kind of power, when you combine that with all those policies that we mentioned at the beginning, the moment they log in, they're going to get all their settings, all their applications, all of the restrictions that you put in place. Everything will be there. So it's literally zero touch for the IT managers. All they have to do is put the order, get the pre-provisioning token, and the users are going to be happy at the end of the day. Okay. All right, so I know that we are coming up a little bit on time, so I wanted to quickly help you, and this will be quick. It's just, how do I select the right Chromebook for Cloudworkers? So we have a tool within our resources that, we'll send this out to you. Basically, what it does is that it will ask what is the device going to be used for, right? And then based on those things, we can put them into very specific categories. And then when you go through very specific OEMs, it will tell you as a reseller which devices you can recommend. And I have a sample here that is up for Acer, but obviously we have for all the major OEMs. Okay, so this tool will be able to send it to you, and it's an invaluable tool because it helps you recommend the right tool for your workers. So now I'm gonna just pass it on to Trevor, who has some additional information about D&H and what you need to do in order to become a reseller and get set up to sell Chrome Enterprise. Go ahead, Trevor.
Awesome, thanks. And look at that, just that fast, we've got this thing up and ready to roll for its first user, whoever that would be, and it's got D&H deployed and ready to go. But this could be obviously any use case scenario, but that's the beauty of it. We'll get back to that in a second. But I hope that today we have some net new opportunities with people that were maybe interested in Chrome that haven't really engaged with it yet, or they've had other resellers that have had success, or maybe you're starting with a new company and the last one that you were at, you had a lot of success with Chrome. We're trying to figure out how to just get in the door, through D&H and then into Google. So we've got some links that we can provide. I think they're already in the webcast documentation, but essentially that takes you through to the portal that you would use to get onboarded with Google, and then from there we can get your account authorized so that you can start selling the Chrome licensing that Fausto mentioned earlier, the upgrade piece. So there is that, and then obviously we have our licensing desk. We have a fully staffed team able to support those questions, and in addition to that, we have obviously pre-sale support, the Solutions Lab, and then the professional services team, which is what we're looking at right here with this slide. So I wanted to touch on white glove services for a minute, because realistically, I mean, that is something that has been around since honestly before even the days of Chrome. I think, what was the running joke years and years ago, Fausto? I think in the Google world, they called it white glove just because it was kind of a placeholder and it just stuck. And then they just yeah, we'll just keep it that, right? But it's the idea of making sure something's prepped. Zero touch, I feel like, is sort of the evolution of that, or a new way to deploy it. But I think that there's still definitely a use case and a need, especially when you're talking about something physically that has to happen. Like, there's no zero touch that would happen if there's laser etching that's required, or physical asset tagging, or custom OU sorting, where you're taking devices and you're pre-packaging them in a certain way via either green shipping or just custom labeling, saying, okay, of this order of 10,000 devices, I need 50 to go to this location, I need 60 to go here. We see that a lot, obviously, in the education world, but it certainly holds true in the enterprise market as well, that there's custom sorting that needs to happen. But even with all of that aside, if you saw what I did just to get this unit ready on the zero touch side, that's an important thing to kind of call out, because realistically, in the world of ZTE or zero touch, and look, it's very similar, again, if we're looking at the other side of the fence in the world of autopilot, where you're physically still taking a minute at the production level, if it makes sense to, and I think in a lot of cases it does, to take that unit, get in an open connection, make sure that there's no factory defects, potentially a DOA. Maybe there was something that happened in freight damage in. These are things that would be unknown, especially if the damage is concealed. But then realistically, too, just installing the initial updates and some of the things that need to happen on day one to make sure that experience is just as flawless. Because just as I typed my local network connection here to get that this device to know it now needs to belong to my mock end user environment, imagine one person trying to do that 100 times or 1,000 times, and they really just want to hand this off and have it ready. And that's, I think, where white glove services really come in. So definitely engage with us, engage with pro services at dnh.com, and we can help support that any step of the way. And then the last few slides, I think at the end here, are really kind of in conjunction more for Chris and his team on the Solutions Lab. I mean, I think I'm here am I grandfathered in? I guess I'm part of it, right, Chris?
Yeah, you're like, we have a Hall of Fame that you're in the first wing of. It's you and Allison. You guys are in the first wing of the Solutions Lab Hall of Fame.
I like that. I like that.
We'll be coming by shortly with the 3D camera to take a image to do a bronze bust. It's going to be difficult with the hair. It's going to be difficult with the hair, but it's worth the money.
If you start 3D printing it now, it could be ready by 2022. We'll see. Get on it.
Depending on how the technology works, we're still feeling that one out.
Right, but just a few quick quips about the Solutions Lab.
Inside joke about the Solutions Lab and 3D printing.
Oh yeah.
Continue.
We've done a lot of crazy testing, but no, I mean the long and short of it is, I think anyone on this call sees the value in what the D&H Solutions Lab brings to the table in terms of these engaging environments, these opportunities to collaborate with some of the market leaders and great partners that we have, like Google, to really kind of dive in and ask some of the questions that you might have not even thought to ask yet, because the content then sparked that question. So I appreciate everybody's engagement up to this point. Chris, was there anything else you wanted to add about the lab, or anything else about the enablement team in general?
No, I mean, other than we have sales engineers for a variety of different categories: Pro AV, esports, networking. We have a staffed pre-sale support technical line that help you answer any questions you may have. I understand we're coming up at the 3 o'clock timeline. I want to be respectful of people's times. We also have a couple more questions I want to go through too yet. So if you can stick with us, feel free. If you need to drop off, the rest of us will be available on demand, and you can view the end a little bit later. We have a pre-sale support that can help answer questions. We have a staff that's ever growing right now. We have maybe 24. It's probably going to go a little bit more because we have sales engineers for Cisco. We have sales engineers for HPE. We have sales engineers for Microsoft. We have Trevor, who is a solutions architect for pro services in Google. We've got people that can help you out in pretty much any vendor, any topic, any category. So if you don't know where to start, I'd start with pre-sales at dnh.com. If we can't answer your question, we can at least get you going to the right people. But with that, I want to quickly go through a couple more questions before we sign off here, because we had some questions come in.
I want to jump in and answer
one,
Joe's question real quick, if I can, just because I think
ahead.
I love
Go
that
ahead.
it was. Do you all use Chromebooks for your primary computer? The answer would be maybe. I think it's a given for you, Fausto, for sure. But I would say that my daily driver, and honestly, even for work, ever since even the pandemic and prior to that, has been a Chromebook. I've been able to access all of my emails directly through web extensions. And then in addition to that, I even set this thing up with RDP apps that I can go right into our own internal servers if we need to on a secure environment. And it's been a flawless experience, because realistically, if I've got one that I can't find or battery's dead, I literally just sign into the next one and my session is right where I left off. Yeah. So
I unfortunately went a different route, and just to piss off IS, but let's just do that. And no, I mean Chromebooks are absolutely can be used as a daily primary computer, especially when you factor in things like parallels. And you can get a Chromebook with an i5, an i7, 16 gigs of RAM, this 250 gigs of storage. That's a fully functioning computer, no matter how you describe it. But yeah, Chromebooks absolutely are not just this thing you kind of use when they're absolutely a primary computer. They have full support with accessories, webcams, keyboards, mice, docks, you name it. I can't think of a reason not to use it as a primary computer at this point. Next question was, there was someone that was asking about doing custom line of business Android applications in Chromebooks, whether that's possible or not. Fausto, can you go ahead and take that one?
Yeah, you can actually load custom apps, including Android. If it's a custom app and you basically want to sideload it for Android, you just have to activate developer mode, which is fairly easy to do. Yeah.
Can I use a different search engine to get back to Google to tell me how to search things on Google in a Chromebook?
You could.
I mean,
so,
I would use any search engine to find my way back to Google.
You basically are able to change your default search platform at any time. So,
George, I'm not gonna name that specific search engine. Let's just say, can I ask Jeeves to find my way to Google?
Ask Jeeves. Okay, we're going way back now. I like that.
I don't want to hurt anyone at this point. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for sticking in with us a little bit after the 3 o'clock hour. Fausto, Trevor, great presentation. If you guys watching this have any more questions, feel free to shoot us a question at proservices@dnh.com or solutionslab@dnh.com. This webcast will be available in its entirely on demand in about 72 hours at dnh.com/solutionslab or dnh.ca/solutionslab, depending on if you're seeing this in US or Canada. We are giving away 50 DoorDash $25 gift cards as part of this webcast. That giveaway will happen after the presentation has finished, so keep your eyes on your inbox to see if you are a winner there. We also have a full slate of trainings coming up in the near future. Coming up on May 21st, we'll be talking about equipping the huddle room 2.0. It'll be hybrid huddle rooms for back to office situations. Jason Friggedy, solutions engineer, will be taking that one. And then on Thursday, the 29th, Colleen and the Cisco folks will be back again with us, that whole motley crew. They'll be talking about Cisco security email for Office 365, which is super relevant right now, especially with a lot of people that are also touching Office 365 and Outlook Online. So they've got a solution there to help keep those emails secure as well. But with that, Trevor, Fausto, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, all of us that have joined us today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks
for
everyone.
coming.
Take care.